You had a very flourishing career, I've heard, like an IIT and IIM. So, what made you become an attorney?
They had what's called a bond in those days. Meaning, if they send you abroad for 1 year, it means you got to work 2 more years in India.
So, this was a typical green card marriage.
And I would rather die one day saying I tried whatever I could, rather than say I just sat back waiting for things to happen.
Venky, is that the next thing then after legal services? Are you planning to challenge Kishore and Kumar?
Hey, welcome everyone. Don't think we have a lot of IIM graduates who end up being attorneys, and I have some very interesting stories of kind of people Venky has defended, and I'm hoping he'll share them with us. I have seen texts on his phones from mothers in India thanking him for saving their sons. So, with that, Venky, thank you very much for accepting our request to come to the podcast. Let me ask with this first question. I don't know of anyone else from IIM Bangalore who is an attorney in America. So let me ask you. So what made you become an attorney? So Venky, and you had a very flourishing career, I've heard, like an IIT and IIM combination. That's like the golden combination of our country. You were the golden boy.
Some of my
certificates.
admissions from the backgrounds. So after I came out of IIT, I worked for 1 year as an electrical engineer in a company called Westerwork Engineers in India, in Bombay, selling electric furnaces, which is essentially traveling mostly in Maharashtra and working to meeting people. So it was called a sales and service engineer. And during which time I wrote the IIM entrance exam, and then I joined IIM the year. So after exactly 1 year of working, I joined IIM Bangalore. So those days, IIM Bangalore was the third of the IIMs. IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore was relatively new. All people who are similar, mostly from IITs and from other places, smart people are all at IIM Bangalore. So there's a guy called N.S. Ramaswamy who was the director. I don't know if you ever heard of his name.
Oh, we heard of Ramaswamy, yeah.
I think it was N.S. Ramaswamy. It's been so long,
yeah.
40 years now. So his nickname was Bullock Cart Ramaswamy. So Bullock Cart, because that's all he used to. Every time he comes and talks, he'll talk about improving the efficiencies in a bullock cart so that the cart will run really well. So he had no marketing issues, finance issues, any other things. He'll always end up talking about a bullock cart. So that was the joke, that most of the IIM guys are there to somehow improve bullock carts and go into public sector and do some kind of social stuff. In fact, we even had something called a social involvement project in the second year, where we all had to go and do something in the villages. So me and four other classmates went to Madurai, and we had to look at all the village industries and come up with ideas of improving their work, both from the production side as well as the finance side. It was a very interesting project. I was the only guy who spoke Tamil because all the other four people were from other parts of India. So I was the main translator for the group. It was very interesting. I think it was worthwhile. I still remember we had good fun in those 1 month or so we spent in Madurai. But in the end, we produced a report, and after during that period, you had to specialize, as you know, in either finance or marketing. People decide towards the end. And I said, you know what, let me take computer courses. So I took all systems courses starting around whenever it was available, and end up coming out as a specialization in systems, which in those days people said it's a total waste. They said, what is the point of coming to an MBA without not studying marketing or becoming a marketing guy or a finance guy? Who cares about systems people? Nobody cares. And so, just like that, the opportunities were not that great. If you say systems, we had Wipro, I think, or TCS, Tata Burrows, or 4 or 5 companies, right? That's all there was. Unlike other areas where you could join any number of companies, right? So eventually I got a job with TCS, Tata Consultancy. And those days, everybody was small. TCS was less than 1,000 people. And they're paying 900 rupees a month.
Wow. So you started at 900 rupees a month. Yes.
900,000 around that, including some benefits, maybe 1,200 or something at the most. And so the modus operandi for TCS was, we'll hire you at a really measly salary, but then we'll send you abroad for projects where you'll get paid in foreign currency, that's where you make your money. And that was the deal. So within a few months, you're off abroad. So in my case, I joined 83 after I graduated. 84, they sent me to US. So it seemed like a silly way to get out of IIM and then become a programmer. But they all said that's how everybody starts at TCS. You start as a programmer, then you work your way up. So I started becoming an analyst and a senior analyst and a project manager. But the trick there was they would bring you back once you finish your project, and they had what's called a bond in those days. I don't know what they do nowadays. Meaning that for every 1 month you or 1 day you spend abroad, you are committed to work for 2 days in India. Meaning if they send you abroad for 1 year, it means you got to work 2 more years in India to satisfy that bond. You cannot leave. You cannot leave the company, go join a competitor. And in the middle of the 2 years, if they send you abroad again, then again the clock stops and then restarts. So it means
Wow.
it's kind of a
Wow.
perpetual bond. You'll never get out of it.
Hmm.
And so, as it happened with lots of people just quit.
Very
Right.
interesting. So that's almost like servitude, right? Like if you
Absolute.
can't quit your job.
And people who did not know the law, it probably could not have been enforced.
Sure.
I was not a lawyer then. If I was a lawyer, then I would have told them to go take a hike,
Hmm.
right? But most people, the remedy was you come to the US and you disappear somewhere, and then
I think 70s and 80s, this employees signing bonds must have been pretty popular, because I've heard from my father. So he graduated from the IIT in the early 70s, and then he joined a company where he's signed a bond, which was that if he leaves it in less than 3 years or something like that, then he has to pay them money. And
Oh,
yeah, I've heard this a number of times when growing up. So he got in the 70s, early 70s, into IIM Ahmedabad. And this was way before even Bangalore started. And I don't know whether Calcutta was there, probably there. And he couldn't pay the bond to the company he joined after IIT. So long story short, he never went to IIM Ahmedabad, and he continued with that company for the next 20 years or 18 years,
wow.
something like that.
Wow. Wow. You couldn't even
Yeah.
break the bond. You couldn't even pause the bond to go get education.
Anyway, we digressed a lot. Venky, you were talking about the bond, and
Yeah, please tell
you
us
had
more
a
about the bond, Venky. So
right,
every
right.
time
So
you came to the
uh,
US, your bond period kept going up. So when
it
did
kept
you
going.
finally leave
But
TCS?
yeah, that's the interesting part because I had a lot of people just leaving in the US, and those days I was a little bit more like, let me follow the contract, come back to India, and then see what happens. So interestingly enough, I came back to India in '84. This immediately tried to pack me off to a project in Hong Kong, right? And the Hong Kong project required for you to know a technology called CICS. I don't know if anybody has even heard of
No,
it
I
now.
have not heard of CICS. Tell us what was it?
CICS is essentially the front end of the mainframes. The
Okay.
mainframe front end was the CICS. It's a specialized skill. You have to be trained and you have to work in that area. They had no clue about it, and they said, "Go and you can figure it out." He said, "You're from IIT IIM. Go there and you will figure it out. Just go there." It was a sole. It's not even part of a team. With a team, at least you can hide within your team. This is one show. It was with Cathay Pacific airline. I think that airline used to be around. And I go there, and given my mentality, if somebody comes and asks me, so I presume your experience in CICS is no, I'm going to learn it. And that did go down well with those people. So they said, hey, we thought you were supposed to be an experienced CICS person. I said, hey, I'm not. I'm happy to try and I'm happy to learn it. And I'm sure in due course I'll figure it out. But turned out TCS was expecting me to go there and sort of
Lie.
fake it.
Yeah.
And yeah, lie
Yeah.
essentially that you were. So within about 2 weeks, the project ended, and I came back. And they said we need a CICS person. You're not a CICS person. So when I come back to Bombay and I meet the big shots in TCS, they said, "Why did you go tell them that?" I said, "What am I supposed to tell them?" They said, "You should have told them you know CICS and you'll figure it out. I mean, you know CICS and then figure it out on your own and just do the job." I said, "See, I was not told to go fake it. They assume that I'll fake it. In
Sure.
India, they
Sure.
assume that,
And most
hey,
people will fake it in that situation.
yeah, I wasn't comfortable faking it. It was like I was confident I can learn anything, but I'm not going to go there and say I got 2 years experience doing
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
where not 2 minutes of
I
experience.
had one of my batchmates tell me once that he read up on an industry while on a flight from Delhi to Mumbai to go consult with the CEO. And when he walked in the room, he said he's an expert in that industry. And his only reading up was on the flight about that industry. So
Right.
there's a lot of faking going on in the consulting industry.
Right. Exactly. And so all these companies now they talk about all these big ethics and whatnot. I don't buy
Yeah.
any of those. All
Yeah.
totally, all of them are completely unethical, and
Yeah.
they're starting. There are about 1,000 odd people. So when I come back to Bombay, they're all on me and a ton, like a ton of bricks. They're saying, Why did you ruin the project?" I said, "What do you mean I ruined it? I just told them the truth." They said, "Okay, then we'll send you off to some other project." Then they put me entirely on India-based projects. They started sending me to Kerala and all these odd godforsaken places, Provident Fund Insurance Project. This project, I said, "You know what? Now I've had it. I'm not going to continue. That I'll have to continue doing that for another 2 years of my life." I said, "I'm not doing it." Then I said, "I'm going to get out of this." Then a smaller company came along which said, "Hey, you've been to the US once. We want somebody who's been there before. We'll get you a visa. You can come along with us." So that's what I did. I ended up coming back to the US.
But then how did you satisfy the TCS bond? Because you still
I didn't
need.
satisfy the bond. I didn't satisfy the bond. So,
So you did
in
not
fact,
follow the contract.
I did not. I broke the contract. So
Okay.
most people break the contract right in the US itself. 90% of the people are somewhere around that number. They never go back.
Okay.
They know that if they're in the US, the bond is not going to do anything to them. TCS is not going to be able to use that bond. For, but they could. TCS is a big gorilla in India. So if you go to India and break the bond, they said you'll get screwed. They'll come
So
after you.
so you broke the bond in India. So did you get
I
a
went to
legal
court.
letter?
I told them I'm not. They said you got a bond. I said do what you like because the next day I was out on a flight to the US. I said go to you can. In retrospect, that was I think TCS's strategy was to stop people from joining their competitors in India. And the way they could do, and they had a good training and all that. So people, and they're all people from IIT IIM, so they are very good caliber of people. So they wanted to, if they lost the people in the US, they didn't really care, but they didn't want to lose the people to their competitors in India. So this bond allowed for that. So they never chased after anybody who left in the US. Uh,
Okay.
Only the ones in India. If you went across the street and joined Wipro or something, they know where you are and they can probably sue you. But if you disappeared in the US, they did not. I did not disappear in the US, but I still broke the bond,
Got
and
it.
they broke the bond. And I said, "Do what you like."
Okay.
And not a lawyer then, but I was beginning to think like a lawyer. It's like, hey, what are you going to do about it? You got a contract, so it's really what's called an unconscionable contract. It cannot be enforced. It can be said it's against public policy. So if it had actually taken anybody to court, especially in the US, they would have been laughed out of court. They could not have locked up somebody for that long a period because you worked for a certain amount of time with you. But so then I came back, worked for some time with this company. The problem with that was a really small company. They had a problem paying. So once together, they were not paying anything. By the time I got married and I brought a wife along also. The first time I had an arranged marriage, typical South Indian Iyer type of marriage. I had been in the US for about a year then. I went back to India. My parents arranged something. And so I got married immediately within 6 months. I brought her to the US. We weren't all that compatible, but I would still be married to her, but for the fact that she had a series of miscarriages. So what happened was she and I didn't have we had a difference of opinion. She said the doctors in America are useless. They don't care about Indian children. I need to go back to India to have this child. I said, no, I got the best possible doctor. We had a lot of learning in the last couple of pregnancies. I'm sure this will work out. And so I thought we had an agreement. And then one fine day, I come back in the evening home and find nobody's there.
Oh my
She's
God.
disappeared. Yeah, she's left. And no trace. She has taken all her stuff. And I had no idea where she went. She didn't leave behind any note or anything. The next thing I heard after a few days was she's in India. She decided to go with her idea of having the baby in India. It was a shock to me. I said, after all this trouble, after all this effort, she just decided on her own. And lo and behold, she had a miscarriage in India. And that for me was the end of it. She did not bother to contact me again. I didn't bother to contact her again. And I just filed for divorce. I don't know much about it, but in Connecticut, I went to a lawyer and said, hey, she went away to India. And what do I do now? He said, let's file for divorce. Filed for divorce, sent her a certified letter. She didn't, I think she accepted it. And that was all this was required, that she got served. and all that I know, like the back of my hand now. But there has to prove that person got notified. She did get notified. She didn't respond, and the divorce was very straightforward. Of course, once I was here, I had lots of connections. I got a job with a US based consulting company. They said, we'll take care of green card, everything. Don't worry about it. And they did. That part of my career was essentially a continuation of what I was doing at TCS. I had expertise in mainframes. So all my work related stuff were all mainframe related
Okay.
because mainframe was the area of
So did you finally learn CICS, Venky?
Oh, of course. I became an expert in CICS in due course in the US.
In 99, for the first 15 or 16 years, you were a consultant right after IIM. What kind of consulting were you doing? And was it a lot of globetrotting or was it all based in the US?
With respect to so-called consulting, all my work was actually hands-on work with the mainframes, analyst, design, programming, project management. All of that I did for several
So you have
companies.
actually written a lot of COBOL code.
Oh yeah, absolutely. COBOL, PL1, those
Okay.
were the main languages those days.
Yes, I've also written some COBOL, so I remember.
Right. And before that, engineering, I wrote Fortran, so I knew
Hmm.
Fortran.
Hmm.
So if you know one programming language, you can learn
Yeah.
the other ones
Yeah.
relatively easily. And
That
so,
that's the thing. So I keep seeing all these new languages, and my son dabbles in things like JavaScript and Python, and I've sometimes sat with him because I've programmed in things like Fortran and Pascal uh, and yeah, a bit of C++. They're all the same. I mean, some are easier in one particular way, some are
Yeah.
have a few differences, but yeah, the basics are what count really.
right. And what I found was, as I went higher up in the ladder into say, project management, I had people under me working on technologies that I had not been hands-on worked on. But even then, I could still figure out whether the project was going well or not going well because
Because you
I was
had the hands-on experience.
and whether the guy knew what he was doing or was just bullshitting. So I could tell that just because intuitively I knew, because I had worked hands on for many years. So my so-called consulting career was I came out of TCS in 86, then went working through this multiple different. This guy who brought me back to the US put me in two three engagements before I left him, and I went and joined a US based consulting company, who then placed me in various places, Con Edison and some banks and so on. So they just moved me around, and finally I joined IBM as a what they call a staff programmer. So one of the facets of my career is I never lasted more than 3 years at any place, not a single place in my whole 40 odd years of experience. It never lasted, and I look at myself and say, why was that the case? Some places it was beyond my control, but some places it was just me because I am a individual contributor. I cannot play the politics of the companies. So if I'm think something is not right, I go and say, hey, this is not the way to do it. And if your boss, if you know how it is in companies, if you don't agree with your boss, if you want to stay in the job, you keep quiet. And if you don't keep quiet, you're not going to have a job. And my thing was, I was usually a little bit ahead of the curve. So I used to make these suggestions, which was rejected. And after I left, they do the same thing that I said this needed to be done. So I was always in that place where if I don't feel I'm valued, I leave. I just leave. I go do something else. And that is not the best way to work either. If you want to grow in an organization, you need to sort of back off at some points and take the abuse, if you can call it that, and bide your time, and then you grow, and you grow, and you grow, and you grow, and then finally you may become the VP or the president or something. I did not have the stamina for that or the temperament, and these are all candid. So you got to know your own personality, and my personality was I knew my things, but I would not back off and just wait for my time. I
So
would
like
rather.
you, so like you said, Venky, you're making $100 an hour doing CICS programming. Now let's bring it back. How do you become? Why do you become an attorney? Because I think a CICS programmer, that's a lucrative career. That $100 an hour
It is. It
in
is. It's more.
1999, which is equal
Right.
to I think $500 an hour today.
Absolutely. So again, I think I already given you a little hint of why I became an attorney. So I'm getting there. So during that period, so all my, since I think one of you asked me what kind of consulting was I doing, consulting was essentially mainframe related. I mean, it was either hands-on coding analysis or project management kind of work, where I was overseeing other people doing this work. And I moved from client to client to client. I worked on numerous clients, and sort of that fit my personality. And if you stayed in a company, they give you opportunities to learn new things and learn new technologies, and that way you're probably going to grow. I started realizing that because technologies get obsolete,
Yeah.
mainframes going away, and I'm like, wait a second, what am I going to do after this? So what I did was I went in 1999. I went and got myself another MBA. I went to for an executive MBA program at the University of Connecticut, in my mind I thought if I get a local MBA, I can get out of this rut of these consulting jobs and maybe do something else. But that coincided with the time when I ended up marrying this woman, and that totally through that's where I'm coming to the place where I'm going to become an attorney.
I think, and we'll get to know from him why he became an attorney. But I think he became an attorney because he thought that's the best way he could help people. And I have the kind of messages I've seen on Venky's phone from other people, they just stand testament to the fact that he's around 18 years, 17 years senior to us. So he's at a point in his life where his primary goal is helping people. Venky also, and again, I can go in and I can talk about his IIT 1980 graduation, then IIM Bangalore 1983 graduation, but he's also a very genuine person.
For 7 years, 1991 to 98, I was by myself, a single guy, uh, having a carefree life, relatively speaking. And then I said, I was getting close to 40. I said, you know what, I need to think about getting married. A woman in California, and it said that I got a niece in Bombay. She is very interested in coming to America. Would you like to meet her? So coincidentally, I was going to India at that time for work. I used to go a lot those days. So I ended up going there, meeting her.
Mhm.
She was pleasant. I thought, what's nothing wrong with her. But if you're open to coming as a fiancé, I can send you the paperwork for a fiancé visa. And she said, fine. And no time she came back and saying, I got the visa. So what do you want to do? I was a little shocked. I thought this is going to take a while before she comes back to me.
Wow. Okay. So I have seen, and again, apologies to all our female viewers, but I think because of the biological clock, women do get very aggressive to find a mate once they cross the age of 30. So maybe that was playing it.
Right.
Okay. So I think there are two learnings here. One, don't get pressured into marrying or taking a job, and the second thing is, don't work with over smart people. Like
Right.
people who are over smart, it's good to work with people who are just normal.
Right.
Like I've realized that. Yeah.
Right. Oh, not just over
I'm
smart.
picking one more learning there. There's probably what you might call lack of due diligence,
Yeah,
or
exactly. That's the exact
understanding
word.
that
Due diligence.
background.
Yeah.
Mm.
Due diligence is the thing. Any other, given that more than anything else in your life, the person whom you're marrying that's your biggest contract going to get into.
Yes.
I look back on it, I'm thinking, what a height of stupidity. I mean, I got myself into the situation where I'm going to be liable for a lot of things without doing my homework,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't know, I had not met their family, I had not met anybody, I just met her. So there was no due diligence. It's amazing lack of due diligence for a guy with my background with IIT and IIM and having worked in the US for this long. I think I got carried away because of the fact that I was close to 40. She was in her 30s. She badly wanted to have kids. And I thought, hey, I also want to have kids. And I said, what could go wrong? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what could
What
go
could
wrong?
go
And
wrong?
she
The
exploited
famous
that.
last words. What could go wrong?
Exactly. And she played me like a fiddle. But she was what I call street smart. She's always been street smart. And the street smartness is what defeated me because I did not realize that I was getting played. Because fast forward a little longer, it turns out she really wanted to come to the US. And and she had confided to other people, I don't really care for this guy.
So this was
She just,
a typical green card marriage,
it's
where
typical.
yes,
So 1986, when I quit TCS, till 1999, I was doing mostly jobs related to mainframe in some capacity or the other.
Was it always on the software side, or were you also buying hardware?
I was not at all in the hardware other than the management side of it. There may be some project under me who's in charge of hardware part of it, but I was never hands on that part. So I
Okay.
wouldn't know how to do that job.
Because these mainframes, they costed over $10 million, right? These were not cheap machines.
They were expensive, and they were the only game in town for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. The story used to go. Nobody got fired for buying IBM. So I till 92 to 99, I worked in various consulting gigs, mostly on the mainframe side, doing various different types of jobs. 99 to 2001, I did this part-time MBA, but also at the same time in the year 2000, I moved to the Bay Area because everybody was saying there's a dot-com thing going,
Yes. Yes.
so you need to go there, and that's where the money is. And I got sold on that. So I didn't think anything. I was doing anything great in Connecticut anyway.
And were
So I
you
said,
the
like,
only employee of your company for Indus System?
I was the only employee. I never had anybody else.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the moment I decided to shift to California, there I took on some full time jobs with a couple of companies. Both of them have
Startups,
disappeared.
mostly
Startups.
startups. Okay.
Startups. And at that time, I closed down Indus Systems because those
Okay.
became full time jobs.
Okay.
And again, 2 years, every 2 or 3 companies I worked, all of them went out of business because that
Okay.
was actually that dot-com bust. Since
Yes.
when were you in California?
I reached California in the year 2000. Summer of 2000 is when I first came here.
Okay, that's around the same time I came
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So I
So that was the
remember.
tail end of the dot-com because
Yes.
all the financing, everything dried up,
Yes.
and nobody was able to get any money. And
Yes.
so effectively they cut off the funding to most companies because they're
Yes.
all the big panic saying that lots of useless companies got funded and they
Yeah.
all went out of business, and so then they stopped funding altogether. So the boom where they just funded anything and everything, uh, whatever nonsense idea came along was funded, and towards the end, even if you had a valid idea, it wouldn't get funded, and they
Yeah.
pulled the plug.
That that doesn't sound too different from what's been happening in the last 5 to 8 years of the ZERP era.
Mhm.
So we're probably going to have some aftershocks from
Yeah,
there.
right, exactly. So if you live long enough, you've seen many of these things come and go. And so that in 2001, I got a job offer from Infosys, and I came to Texas. From
Okay.
since then, I've been in Texas. So between 2001, I came here. I had already got married, and 2003, my divorce started. So that's technically the point at which my attorney ambitions started. You could say,
So your divorce
although not
started within 4 years of getting married.
absolutely, she was waiting for a green card. So
Oh my God.
the way it works is you, within 3 months you got to get married or go back. After you get married within 3 months, you get a conditional green card.
Hmm.
After 2 years of that, you can apply for a permanent green card. So I did apply for the green card. That I have with retrospect, given the number of times she had betrayed me, I could have held off on that or done something to stall it, but I did not. I signed it within no time. 2003 September, October, I signed the paperwork for her to get the permanent green card. I learned that within a month of that, she was talking to some lawyer
Wow.
to get a divorce. Later. That she made friends with. She is street smart. As I told you, she's not well educated. She joined a daycare place where she met a group of friends, most of them local white people who were all divorced, middle of divorce, end of divorce, all the divorce crowd, as they call them. So they all said she gave them a warped story regarding her life with me, like she was getting abused all the time and she had no rights, and she, as an Indian woman, she was not being treated properly. Completely fake. In fact, my parents were even living there with me at that time, and she was having a good life. But whatever it is, one fine day, I got a knock on my door, and I got paperwork saying, you must be knowing
You've
that
been
you're being
served. Yes.
served, you've been sued. And I said, who's serving me? I mean, what happened here? Then it turns out it was her, and she was there right behind,
Hmm.
with my parents, with my kids.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
looking at this and saying, I did not. I got surprised. The bottom line was, marriage was horrible. But in my mind, I decided whatever it is, for the sake of the kids, I'm not going to disturb it. Having gone through all that, I said I'll stick it out till they graduate school or become an adult. That was the year my daughter was going to, older daughter was going to join kindergarten,
Wow.
and she chose that time to file for divorce.
Oh my God.
And I was caught completely off guard. They'll believe if you're an Indian guy, at least in my situation and around me, they assume that you are overbearing,
Yes.
controlling,
Yes.
and so you are the guy you're the bad guy.
Yes. Yes.
If you get a lead that.
So which career do you so I think so what I'm hearing from you is that's what led you to legal.
That
So
was the if you look back, that was the day. That was the first step to me by becoming a lawyer.
okay.
Although at that point I had no idea about law, I don't know what to do with that paperwork.
Hmm.
I didn't know how she managed to get the money to find a lawyer. It turns out it took them on contingency that she'll get it from
Hmm.
me. And so I went around and looked in the yellow pages, found a lawyer. I thought one lawyer is good as any lawyer. And he said, I'll take care of it. First day we go to court, the other side comes at us like a ton of bricks. They said, these horrible guy, she was tricked into getting married and coming to the US. She has been like a slave for the last 5 years. Her parents are
Wow.
now
Just play
bossing
on the
over.
stereotypical image of an Indian woman. Yes.
And my lawyer was like dumbstruck. He didn't say
Hmm.
anything. And I'm watching this drama going on. I'm saying, what is going on here? And the judge looks at me. That's the other thing that in family court we need. Part of the strategy is make the judge dislike the other side. All this I know inside out now. So that's what she was trying to do. Make me look like the bad guy so that every time we go to court,
Yeah.
decisions will be in her favor. So we come out of court and the guy says to me, I did not know they'll be so angry with you. And I said, wait a second, they're putting on a show. They don't come here to play, be friends. Why didn't you respond? He said, I was not prepared. I thought they will come to some reasonable, let's all get along kind of deal. And the judge made a ruling saying you and your parents all need to leave the house within 2 weeks
Oh
and
my
go wherever
God.
you
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Wow.
very same house where I'm sitting in right now.
Oh my God.
And my parents were shocked. They came to the court. My mom was particularly shocked. He said, I'm not coming to your court again. She
Ah.
said, I don't know what's going on there. It scares the hell out of me.
Hmm.
Those people don't like you and they're going to harm you. I don't want to ever come here. I said to my mom, said, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And so, the day I was leaving along with my parents, this is the difference between me and my mom. My mom told my ex-wife, "God bless you,"
Hmm.
and I said, "Fuck you," and I'll be back. You rest assured, I'll be coming back. And and I did. 7 months later, I was able to show that the money used to buy this house came from what's called separate property
Hmm.
and down payment. It had come from my houses in New Jersey and Connecticut. So I
Hmm.
got back the house. So 7 months I was out in exile, living in an apartment nearby along with my parents. 7 months later, I was back in the house.
Hmm.
And end of the day, I got a better lawyer, expensive as hell,
Hmm.
charged in those days $400 an hour.
Oh my Lord.
And
That's $1,000 an hour today.
yeah, that's a whole lot more today.
Hmm.
That guy's name was Charlie Hodges, but he did a good job. He got. I mean, again, this is one of the tricks lawyers. He said your case is in a ditch. The previous guy has screwed it up. I need to get you out of the ditch, so it's going to cost a lot of money. So he did get me out of the ditch, so-called ditch. Got me back the house and protected my separate property. So then she walked out with hardly anything to show because we were married 6 years. The so-called community property all was blown off by legal fees. We spent about $100,000 in legal fees. So whatever savings I had, I was paying everything. The lawyer, my lawyer, and then there was no money. So she walked out with little money and nothing to show. But so and we got what's called joint custody with expanded stand possession. So I got my house back. I got plenty of time with my daughters. So one would think that would be the end of the story, but it was not. So she was dedicated to undermining the status quo. That's when she kept filing more things, getting me back to court, and slowly I realized, you know what, I'm paying these lawyers a ton of money by family court. Decisions are all random. Never know what I'm going to get. So I said, why am I paying this? I can do it myself and lose on my own rather than pay someone and lose, paying that fellow and then lose. So, one thing I learned about family code, this is where my legal knowledge started, is that family code, there are two key words that you need to keep in mind, which is the court has the judge has got what's called broad discretion to make any decision which she considers is in the best interest of the child. That gives her carte blanche to decide anything, whatever be the law. Doesn't matter. Eventually, she says, "I don't believe it's a good for the child to be with you. Child won't be with you." And since I became expert in appellate law afterwards, I learned from the appellate lawyers. I became involved in the political side. I used to run forums for people running for appellate court. I became friends with appellate judges and so on. What the simple so these are all not rocket science. Problem is the statute is such that appellate court cannot relook at the facts. So whatever facts the judge says is the facts will continue to be the facts. It's only when it comes to the law they will look for what's called abuse of discretion, and that's a high bar. You've got to prove there's been abuse of discretion. If you can't prove abuse of discretion, they have to let the lower court order stand. They cannot change it. So you may believe, oh, I appealed it, I did this, I did this. At the end of the day, chance of winning an appeals court are not that great. You can see that even with Donald Trump, he keeps on going and appealing and losing all the time. So I'm not surprised because winning an appeals court is a 10% chance of winning. So as the more I came to know of this, the more I figured out the system. I said, you know what? And plus, I saw the caliber of the people who are doing, especially family law. They're not the brightest of bulbs. And I said, I'll do it myself. So I became what's called pro se. You know what that is? I think you were pro se sometime or before in between. If you don't have a lawyer, you're called a pro se.
Yeah.
Okay. So I
And this
started
was
going to court.
2000. This was 2005.
So 2005, I got the a good final order giving me
Hmm.
joint custody, possession, all that. So
Hmm.
between 2005 and 2013 is where it started undermine. She started undermining, going back to
The
court each time,
Yeah, the
and I
alienation.
fell, yeah, I fell into the trap sometimes. For example, there was a provision in the in our divorce decree saying either parent cannot take the child out of the country without permission from the other parent, and such permission will not be unreasonably withheld.
Hmm.
All right. So the trick there is the word unreasonably. Who decide unreasonably? The judge. So on one occasion, she said, "I'm going to go to India and I'm going to bring the children back the day before school starts."
Hmm.
I said, "Why do you want to wait till one day before school? They will be jet lagged. They won't be able to attend school with. They'll be and pay attention." She said, "I'm going to do it anyway." And I said, "In that case, I'm not giving you permission. I'm not signing the permission slip." She got that lawyer and came back and sued me. Right? And the judge was one of those judges who didn't like me from the beginning. Right? And she turned around to me and said, "Who do you think you are? I mean, it's her time. One day before the holidays is still her holiday. It's her holiday period. She can bring them back 1 minute before that if she wants. It's up to her." And she hit me. She compelled me to sign the permission slip, and she hit me with a huge attorney fee judgment, $4,000 or something. So when I look back on that, that was unnecessary. I could have said, and I had a lawyer. She could have told me as well, you know what, don't bother with this. Let her go. Let her go.
Don't
You'll
fight the
get your
small stuff.
yeah, not just the
Yes.
small stuff, which is small chance stuff where your prob- probability of winning is low, and the consequences of losing is very high, right? So end of the day, and also one more thing to learn is the more times the other side wins, the more overconfident they get,
Yeah.
and then your position becomes weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So I was stuck with that judge, and so I asked the lawyer then, saying, "Hey, this judge is never going to give me a single uh, fair ruling. Why didn't we get to another court?" And you know what she told me? She said, "It's not possible. Once in family court, you get a judge. That's your judge till your children turn 18." And in my mind, it was immediately, why should that be? That's where my legal thinking is different from other lawyers, right? But that lawyer is, it's like a fait accompli. You can't do anything. She's going to be a judge. You're stuck. You're screwed. Every time you come to court, this is what's going to happen. So what I did, I went. By the time I started making friends with the judges and getting involved in the political side, conducting forums for judges running, candidates running for judge, I asked one of the candidates who was running for appellate court, became a pretty good friend of mine. He unfortunately passed away soon after that. I said, "What do I do? I'm stuck with this judge. You were also a similar judge. What can I do?" He said, "Hey, there's one option. It's called filing a motion for recusal, asking for the judge to be recused in your case. But just remember one thing: if you go after the queen, make sure you kill the queen,
Hmm.
meaning no half measures. Because if you don't succeed, you got an enemy as a judge,
Yeah.
and then you're screwed." So I took that literally. That was the first time. By the time I said I had enough of lawyers. I went to court a few times, and I filed this motion for recusal against the judge. And
So did you file this yourself, or through? Did you
no, I
have
did
a
not.
lawyer
No
at this
lawyer
time?
does it because what happens is,
Yeah, you don't
you,
want the judge to hate you.
Their careers will get harmed.
huh?
The
Yeah,
lawyer's career will also get.
The lawyers themselves, they have other cases with that
exactly,
judge.
exactly. No lawyer will do it for one client when he has got 10 other clients in front of the judge. If the judge decides she doesn't like that lawyer, then she screw all his other clients as well. And then you get a reputation of
Yeah.
going there for with the clients. You won't have any more clients because you always lose. You go with that lawyer, right?
Yeah.
But
So you did this yourself, and just to put so before until here, you were still doing your
yeah,
consulting
yeah, of
work.
course, still doing consulting work.
Okay.
We're getting close to that point where my life changes differently.
Hmm.
So I did that motion for recusal. I had a proper hearing with the presiding judge. In the end, I ended up winning that and removing
Wow.
the judge. Right? That
But
was
removing the judge only from your case, not from all,
my
just
case.
from
Of
the
course,
case.
you're not
Okay.
fired off the bench altogether.
Okay.
That means
Okay.
that judge will no longer be a judge for me.
Okay.
My case will move to a different court.
And what?
And
How could you win that? Like, what reasons did you give?
you had to prove really that the judge is biased against you. The judge has got some ulterior motive in doing whatever she's doing. It's very complicated. You got to find facts. You cannot just say I don't like her decisions.
Hmm.
That's not a reason enough to remove a judge. You got to find something or the other, make an allegation that the judge is corrupt, the judge is somehow in bed with your wife or ex-wife, and make it such that the judge is not fit to be a judge in your case.
Hmm.
And obviously, it's nasty stuff. That's why if a lawyer does it, if he fails, then he's screwed anyway. If he succeeds, his other clients may get screwed because
Yeah.
they may be still the same lawyer. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to practice law in front of this judge anyway. So I'm not going to. I don't care. So you do that. I got that judge removed. There's seven family courts in Dallas, and once you got there, I realized what I could do. I started doing it again and again. Whenever I got rulings which I was not satisfied with, I removed the judge. I got the judge
Ha!
removed.
How many judges did you remove, Venky?
And no more effectively, judges remove themselves. The moment my case came to the court, next day they will remove themselves. And I defeated the case.
And then,
So how
So
many?
my
yeah, it's like in the corporate world, you're like the Carl Icahn or someone who just once he gets on the shareholding
yeah,
table, then everyone knows the share price is gonna
So
exactly.
boom.
how
So
many? How many judges did you actually remove?
I think around 11.
Ooh, unbelievable!
I remove meaning what? Either I
And
remove
all
them or
these
they
were
remove
your
themselves.
case.
You had to go to a presiding judge, and the presiding judge said that this judge should not be looking at your case anymore.
No, no, no. That's not for every one of them. Some
Okay.
of them, many of them removed themselves.
Okay.
Meaning they knew if the case came to their court at some point, I may try to remove them.
Okay. So
So
how
this
many?
lady,
How many removed themselves, and how many you removed by filing a motion?
I think I removed four and
Wow.
seven removed themselves.
Wow. That's
It's
a
called voluntary recusal.
wow.
Voluntary recusal is that
Yeah.
says I don't want this case,
Wow.
right? So I became like this guy who's got a reputation, right?
Uh-huh.
It's got its pros and cons because the judge is being afraid of you, and that's the interesting thing is when my mom told me once when we were going to court saying these judges make me afraid of coming here. I said I told my mom one day they'll be afraid of me. Just you wait. So I made that happen. That it's no longer I was afraid of the judge. The judge was afraid of me.
Mm.
But having said that,
And these are
that
white, mostly white old men, right?
no, no, not all white. The white, Hispanic, black,
Hmm.
everything,
Hmm.
all of them.
Hmm.
Name the color, they were there.
Okay.
You had
Yeah.
judges. Dallas is
Okay.
very multicultural,
Okay. Okay.
and so they're all political people. They
Hmm.
all got elected to their office, and I removed a lot. But the other part of that story is the getting rid of. If you remove one judge and remove two judges, remove three judges, they're all still part of the same
Community.
ecosystem.
They're still going to
Yeah,
the same restaurants to eat. They're still
yeah.
meeting
So
socially.
technically, they're not supposed to talk to each other
Yeah,
about
but they do. Yeah.
they do. So I knew right away if I come in front of any judge that I'm already at a disadvantage. So even though I removed so many judges, I had the satisfaction of removing judges. The quality of decisions I was getting was not great.
Hmm.
Right, I was still not getting. I was getting adversaries. They were more careful in what they said or
Hmm.
did, and the appeals I won some appeals. I did not win some appeals. So end of the day, there was one incident that happened which completely turned everything upside down, and that what eventually propelled me to go to law
Mm.
school. So in 2013, I don't know if ever told you this story. In 2013, I had everything was I still had my custody. It was somewhat reduced from before, but I still had 50-50 possession. And I was going to go. My mother, who had been with us for 4 or 5 years, had gone back to India. Had got her a green card, citizenship, everything. She said, "I'll come back in a few years." She immediately got cancer within a year of going there. And it was terminal. It was stage 4 or something. So I booked my tickets and everything for myself, my daughters to go in June, in August. So in May of that year, I got my ex-wife to sign a permission slip to take them. Then I went to Houston, got them visas. They all US passports, and then I come back and she files a restraining order saying that I'm not comfortable. I don't think they're safe going to India with him. I was like, wait a second. They have gone to India with me multiple times, and they've gone to Australia. They've gone to Canada. Every time they come back safe and sound. What is the problem? And I thought it will go nowhere. But it came to a judge. This was my pre-recusing period of judges' recusals and all came after this. So I went in front of the original judge, very first one who they had painted a very bleak picture about me. She immediately decided that I must have done something. So she said, "I need to. Children need to be interviewed. You bring them for an interview." So I brought them for an interview. 2 days later, I was supposed to report back to her. My daughter was still with me then. We were supposed to go to New York, and then we were supposed to go to India. I go to the court. I tell my daughters I'll come back in a little bit. After that, we'll do whatever we plan. They're old enough to be at home by themselves. I go to the court, and the judge says, "You know what? I don't like the interview that your daughters gave. Whatever it is, it was sealed interview. I didn't even know what was said or not said. I'm going to take away your custody right away, the possession right now." I said, "What for?" I said, "They're supposed to go to India with me." I got a little pissed off with the judge, and I was no lawyer, it's me and the judge. And I said, "You're punishing the grandmother if you don't let them go to India." That set her off even more. I think she got concerned that I was going to lose my temper or something. She said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to ask you to wait here. I'm going to ask your wife to go and ex-wife to go to your house and take the children." And so then I texted my daughter saying, "You know what? Something has changed here. Your mom is going to come and get you." And my older daughter was very upset. She said, "What happened? Why is this happening?" I said, "I don't know, but she's going to come get you." And then she wrote me a very flowery letter saying, "I love you. I don't know what's happening. You'll always be my dad, blah, blah, blah." So I take that, kept it. And I also replied back to her by text saying, "I'll fight for you." And then she went off with the mom. And I had to go to India. Obviously, I did not want to wait around fighting the case because I had to go see my mother, who eventually passed away in October. And I come back 3 or 4 months later, and these children are singing a completely different tune, saying they don't want to come back. They don't want to come back to my house even for 5 minutes. They don't want to come back. And I'm saying, how can this be? So that
That's
was the
a
moment I
so the 4 months that you didn't have contact with your children, and like what I've learned is that I have to have constant contact with my daughter, so
that's
I
right.
can keep undoing the
You
alienation.
can- exactly. I
Yes,
was seeing that attempts even earlier, but they used to come back to me regularly so I
yes,
could undo whatever
undo.
she said.
Yes,
So this period, I did not have the opportunity, and that was it.
that was it.
And they were totally changed from saying you're the greatest dad in the world and whatnot to you're the worst.
Yes.
You don't want to come. And so the court said we're not going to force them to come back to you. And I was still on my own. And they said, and I was not going to get a lawyer at that point. I said I had enough of lawyers. I'm going to law school. I'll deal with this and I'll go to law school. And so side by side, I wrote the LSAT and all that. Started law school in 2015 and went through counseling and in this unification counseling, this counseling, that counseling, whatever. But bottom line, it didn't work because the children were adamant they're not coming back, and they were super smart. They sabotaged every counselor. Every counselor they came along, they said these kids are not even listening to me, so I can't help you. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars in these counseling sessions and psychology
So
sessions. This session,
Venky, you went through a lot to get the love of your children, right? Like with your first wife, you kept having miscarriages. With your second wife, you were literally held at a ransom to have access to your children. And finally, you did not get your children.
exactly. I had my children for 14, one till one was 14, other was 11.
Yes.
Right after that, for all practical purposes, I've not had them. I've had
Yes.
seen them at counseling sessions. I've seen them at where they did the evaluation, custody evaluation, this evaluation, but not as a normal father would
Father.
see as
Yes.
at home, at sleeping in their bedrooms and so on.
Yes.
All that went away. That never came back. If somebody had told me then, right then, this is never going to work, maybe I would have not bothered to go to law school. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
And was it
so
a
I was
full-time law school or was it a
No,
part-time law?
it was part time. It was hybrid, meaning it was I joined law school in St. Paul, Minnesota. It was called William Mitchell at that time. Now it's called Mitchell Hamlin, and they had just come up with this program where you could do part of the thing from remotely, and just come to the law school for things that require you to be there. So it's only 2 3 weeks in the entire semester. You have to be there in person. Rest of the time you can do it from wherever you are. And so that fitted me nicely. And as I was doing that, I also decided that, hey, you know what? After all this, I should not waste my engineering degree. So right from the beginning, I wanted to go into patent law because there, at least there's a use of whatever I did earlier. So although I was fighting my family cases simultaneously, becoming better and better at the family court and appellate court, I've taken matters till the Supreme Court in some instances.
Has any of your case been heard in Supreme Court?
Yeah, yeah, Texas Supreme Court, not US
Oh,
Supreme Court.
okay, Texas Supreme Court. Okay.
Yeah,
How many
and
cases have you taken to appellate court, Venky?
lots,
How
a lot
many?
of them,
Five,
uh,
six, 10?
uh, 25, 30.
Wow. You've taken
So
30.
yeah, so I routinely appealed any adverse ruling in trial court, and my winning percentage was about the same, 10 15%. Most of the 85% was losing cases, but every case I lost, I learned something. That's the other thing you need to remember is you learn a lot from losing and even from winning. And I lost and immediately said, okay, this is what happened here. This is why I lost. This is why I lost. So as I was coming out through law school, I was practicing law in my own case in all kinds of ways through recusal motions, mandamuses, appeals, things that most lawyers will do in somewhere in their lifetime. I was doing it during law school. And so when I finished law school, I found that most of my classmates were even afraid to go in front of a judge because they are not confident as yet. I was all ready. I was all ready, all baked, ready to go. And so that's when that's the way I ended up becoming a lawyer. And then I went into patent law, which requires to write a separate patent bar exam. So again, there also I look back and said I could have forestalled anything, any of my legal issues by saying I'm not applying for the green card. You can become out of status, you can live here, I don't have a problem, but I'm not getting you the green card. But I did not, right? Again, among all the various I should not have this, add this to the list. Right? Like from the time
It is, and Venki, hindsight is 2020,
exactly,
isn't it?
hindsight is 2020. And some decisions I made, I believe I would make the same decisions today, like not letting her go back when she said I want to go back and I'll be in India. So a lot of people said, "Hey, let her get lost. Let her go live in India. Let her bring up the child on her own. She'll come to her senses one day, and then she'll call you, and then she'll come back." I wasn't prepared to take the chance with my daughter. She would be born in India. People would have seen her as a daughter of a single woman. She would not have got the opportunities. She would not have the US citizenship. She would not have had any of those things. So let me cut fast forward to the sad part of the story. So she has now been thoroughly alienated by the mom.
Yes.
But she was already being alienated. She is now uh, doing well at NBC News for a year and a half. She got a journalism degree from New York's University.
Wow, that's
And
impressive.
and recently I saw an interview with her. All the time I've been trying to reach out to her, trying to see if there's a way to reconnect with her. And my hope was when she goes far away from her mom, she may come to her senses. She'll see the situation for what it is. Because I brought her up like a jewel, as I used to tell people. What happened was, what was a straw on the camel's back that broke the camel's back for me was she gave an interview with somebody. So she is portraying her childhood as miserable, and she makes it look like I was mistreating her in some way, which is the exact opposite of the truth.
No, I wanna
And
I wanna interject here, Venki. When somebody told me about parental alienation, I thought, what gobbledygook is it? What do you mean by parental alienation? What is it? There is nothing called parental alienation. This is all stupid new age theory. But then I experienced it with my daughter. My ex-wife told my daughter that, oh, I woke up and I'm so scared because I dreamt of Papa was peeling your skin off. It's like, and I think you should change your last name to her last name. So mothers have this unique hold over their children because the children are literally in their body for 9 months. And if a mother wants to alienate their child, they only have to say certain key sentences, and that can change how a child thinks about their father. So I think over the last 4 years, as I've suffered from issues of parental alienation, to other fathers listening, if you are in a marriage that's not working out, please be very careful about parental alienation.
Absolutely.
It's a
And
very real thing. It's a very real
the
thing.
strange part is, I recently got a case where the woman was my client, and there's two daughters, exactly like my kids, two daughters. She was filing for divorce. I actually filed for divorce for her against the father because she said it's a terrible marriage, he's not getting along, blah, blah, blah. I said, fine, if you don't want to stay married, I'll help you out. I filed it, made everything happen. Then she said one thing to me that totally disturbed me. She said, I asked her, I told her, like, hey, you know what, you may have to share some custody with your father. After all, he's still the father. She told me, don't worry about that. I'll talk to her, and after that, she won't want to see her father. And if I am not able,
Exactly. That
this was a younger
sentiment.
daughter. Yeah, and this was one of the daughters was an adult by then, and this was 16-year-old, the other one was 21. She said, if I can't convince her, I know my older daughter can convince her. To my face, she is telling me that
Yes.
she didn't use the word alienation. Obviously, she
Sure.
doesn't know that. But the intent was clear. She wanted to have the
Yes.
child for herself. She knew how to get to that. So
Yes.
I did, although she was still my client, I told her in a very nice way, hey, you know what, maybe a good thing to have the father at least involved in some way. Maybe you
Yeah.
don't like it, but it's still maybe a good idea that
Yeah.
he may be part of their lives. It may be good for them. I don't know what she's doing in the end because I don't keep day-to-day touch with her. The divorce is still going on. But it's so simple. She made it like it was a nothing. She could do it in no time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, now I know what my ex-wife did, right?
It's surprising how common it is once you divorce, whichever divorce, the woman has just so much power to alienate your children from you. And men are so much on the receiving end of it. And this preconceived notion in the society that adds up to it. So the more people talk about it, there'll be more understanding. And other fathers who are suffering from it, they'll say, oh my God, this is what's happening to me. And that will help them, I think.
Yeah, and absolutely. Because on the one hand, there is a complaint that fathers just walk away and just leave the mom.
Exactly.
But if you make the father's life hell,
That's exactly my point. My life has been made a hell. How
yeah,
like my attorney has told me, like, why don't you walk away? I said I can't walk away. That's not an option to me. It's like every day the temperature gets raised a little bit. Like, hey, are you ready to walk away now? Let me raise the temperature a little bit more. Are you ready to walk away now? Let me raise the temperature a little bit more. But I think humans in fights can be real bad to each other.
yeah, and especially if they see the child as their property or
Yes,
somebody belongs to them. So the woman, especially the woman, that's the typical women's that I gave birth. They
yes,
belong to. Who are you?
yes,
You
yes.
donated the sperm, so now get lost.
What we have to understand is that no child wants to hear anything bad about their mother.
Right.
However, so I think what I practice with my child is to only share the good things about her mother. So uh, I think that practice might help you also.
No, in my case, the train has just left the station. So you're right. That's the right way to go about it. Okay. So at some age, the child will say, you know what, my mother used to keep saying bad things about my dad, but my dad never said the same.
And actually,
And
you gave me that advice now that I remember.
that advice was
I
very
actually
wise.
I actually repeated Venky's advice back to him. Yeah.
Exactly. I gave you that advice
Yes.
based on my mistakes I had
Yes.
made in my like. I was at a point where they come into me and says, "Mom said this, that." I'll say, "You know what, Mom is that way, that way, that way," and so she's also equally bad, kind of thing, which didn't really serve me in the long run, right? So you're right. I mean, I was right and you were right about that. There are certain decisions which I look back, I could say I would have done differently. Knowing what I know today, I can say, but certain things, even knowing what I know today, I would not have done, done differently. That
So
is,
Venky, are you planning to? Do you have a romantic partner now?
No, I don't.
Are you
I'm on
planning
my
to
own.
have one?
Well, I am always open to it, but the older I get, the more set in my ways I get, the less likelihood I think. Like, look at my house. This is a four-bedroom house. This is my office where I'm sitting. This is my office part of the house, and I'm alone by myself.
You can
And
always invite me. I'll come. Love to visit Dallas.
you're always welcome. Yeah? So I live with my memories. I had at one time in this home, starting 2002 when I purchased it. I had my mom, I had my dad, I had my two daughters, I had my wife. It was a full house. There was not a single moment of silence. There was something going on all the time, and I have those great memories. And in my mind, those everything comes to an end, right? That's in Hindu philosophy. Everything is Maya, right? So it all ends. But I still have the memories. I still feel my mom is there in the next room, listening to this. Although she passed away in 2013. So now, effectively, I'm a patent attorney,
And
meaning
how many
I've been.
patents have you had successfully issued for your clients?
The patents take a long time to issue. So I've applied in the 3 years. I've applied for about 15 or 20 patents over that period. But actually, to issue the patent takes a few years, 2 years, 3 years
Sure.
sometimes. It all depends on what's called office actions taken by the USPTO. So if they take an office action, then you got 6 months to reply, and you reply, that delays it. Very rarely do you just file a patent. In best case scenario, you file it, end of 2 years, you get a patent. But under the normal course, something or other will come up, and you got to deal with it as it comes along. So
So, Venki, is that what you do full time now, patent law and some family court because of your
that, and plus the
experience?
other development that happened in my case, is that I realized that this litigating families issues is not a good idea at all, because it just leads to more and more enmity between the parties. So I started mediation even during law school. I was invited by the local university to be a mediator, and I found that I had a very good knack of resolving matters. I used to get settled almost every case that came to me, because I had been through some of those experiences myself. I also came to know the law, what will work, what not work. If somebody comes and say, "I'll do this, I'll do that," I say, "You know what? I've done that. That won't work." And so, since I settled so many cases, eventually I got an invitation from the American Arbitration Association. So they have put me on their panel as an arbitrator, arbitrator come mediator. So my long-term planning is I will do some amount of family law. I mean, some amount of mostly patent law, but I also hope in due course to become an arbitrator. More and more, I gravitate towards arbitration and mediation. So, difference is arbitrator is like a judge, the private judge. The disputes come in front of you. You listen to both sides, and then you make a ruling which is binding. That is, you're like a judge. In fact, even more so like a judge, because arbitrator's ruling cannot easily be appealed at all. Like a judge's ruling, you can appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. Arbitrator's ruling are pretty much that's it. You make a ruling, that's it. So it's really speaking even more powerful than a judge. And in my mind, I need to use that really carefully, because I would hate to think I misunderstood the problem and I made a ruling, and then I screwed up somebody else's life. But I would like to think even the loser in a case with me would say, yeah, it was the right decision. He did it right. So, bottom line, arbitration, mediation, patent law, and then a mishmash of other things. Whatever else comes along with to me, if I find it of interest, if I like the party and I think the problem is interesting, then I take it on. I've done the ones I described to you about the kid from India who came and got into trouble. That was a Title IX dispute. That I took on without really knowing anything about it to start with, but by the end I became an expert.
Sorry, what's the Title
So the
Nine?
Title IX is an
Sorry.
interesting phenomenon here. So if you're in university, they have this Title IX where you can file a complaint against a fellow student and say that he sexually harassed me or sexually did something inappropriate, and it's it's such you can go in there with such flimsy reasons that you can go file a complaint, and then it's hell for the other side, because it's like guilty unless proven innocent kind of thing. It's sort of like I think
Right.
even in India this dowry things and all that, right? The moment they make an allegation, they lock you up
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
So sort of something like that. And here I got a call. Somebody contacted me from Pune, in India. This guy said somebody referred you to me, and we would like you to help my son. He's been being very depressed now because he's been made allegation and now everybody has deserted him. I initially said, you know what, I don't really have any experience with this law. But the guy said, you know what, you have to take it. Somebody said you're good at everything. So I said, let me take it. And then I figured it out. I learned all about that law. And eventually I got him exonerated. And then another case came along similar to that. Again, I got the person exonerated. And so every time I do it, you become better at it each time and you realize how it works, how the system works. So my point is that that's why I call myself just a problem solver. If you come to me with a problem, if I find it interesting and if I like you, I'll take it. I think you're deserving
So it's
person.
now it's now Venky, the patent lawyer, the arbitrator, and the up and coming Title IX defendant
I would say
defender.
up and coming Title IX defender. Title IX is just random couple of cases that came to me. I don't have a whole lot of
Right.
such cases coming, but I know
And and
enough to
and and
handle those cases.
and is a Venky the consultant in
Yeah,
history?
the consultant part is there too. I have some a few companies that consult with me. I act as a de facto VP of legal, and they come to me with issues, personal issues, contract issues, and I draft contracts for them or I review contracts for them. And if there's a possible breach of contract, I help to litigate those contracts. So I
Venki,
do that.
without naming names, are we at liberty to talk about on the air the interesting case that you shared previously? The case that involved texting with someone and underage and all that.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I can talk about it. That's an
Okay.
ongoing case, but I can talk about it.
Okay.
So
How
in
is
this
that?
particular
Yeah.
case,
Yeah. That was a very interesting case. Could you please share?
yeah, it's still ongoing. It's still
Yeah.
ongoing. So there, what happened again? That's what I'm saying. I get all these random cases, each different from the other. I take it on if I feel that it's worthwhile, and because in my mind, I can learn anything. If but I make it clear in the beginning, I'm not the expert here. If you still want to go with me, I'll figure it out. So in this case, what happened? This is a criminal case actually. So this is a 21-year-old boy or man, whatever you call him.
And it's a criminal case in Texas.
No, no, it's not even Texas. This is criminal case in Virginia.
Wow. But you're not
It's,
licensed in Virginia, right?
so what I do is I have to get a local lawyer to do the local stuff.
Okay.
I become like a managing attorney.
Okay.
So I am not the person going to court. So effectively, I hired a local criminal attorney who
Mm-hmm.
works there. So
Okay.
they come to me with a problem. When I say I'll provide a solution, doesn't mean I'll do everything on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do if like in your case, if you call me in and somebody has to go to court in California, I may have to engage somebody in California who does it. I may be
Yeah.
a overall case manager,
Yeah.
ensure that the things are going fine. So in this particular case, what happened was again height of stupidity. Some of these kids, I think they don't know what they're doing. So he came from India. He'd been there for a year and a half. He graduated from some management program in 1 year. He got a job with a consulting company, and then he got onto an app. It's like a chatting app or something, where he met supposedly a girl who was 13 years old, right? And they were chatting back and forth, and then she started sort of being seductive with him, and he reciprocated, and then he sent some completely inappropriate pictures of his genitals and stuff to her, saying, "Hey, this is me" and whatnot. I can't even imagine how they can get around doing. He doesn't know the other person to the extent where he says, "How do I know you're not a cop?" and stuff
Wow.
like that. He says in that, and he knows it's illegal, right? How do I know this is illegal? I don't want to get into trouble. He says, but then he continues to do it. The other end, it was a cop. It was a cop acting as a 13-year-old. And then that so-called girl says, "Come over, we can have sex. Come over to my place." And this guy goes, all armed with a condom and whatever paraphernalia, shows up at that apartment where he's supposed to go, is met by cops. Arrest him on the spot, take him to the prison, jail. And in the jail, what he does, again, there's something called Miranda rights, which you should know, which is that you may or may not know, but if you're caught, just shut up. Don't say anything. Get a lawyer first. This guy immediately confessed to everything. He thought that guy was his friend. He said, "Yeah, I did it. It was a mistake. I should not have done it. I got carried away." It's all on tape, right? He shows him, "Is this your picture? Is this your penis? Is this that? Is this so on?" And he agrees to everything. And the guy says, "Okay, fine. Now you go to prison." And in Virginia, the way the law is written, and again the legislature has done it in different states, you get 10 years for sending one such lewd picture and 15 years for every subsequent lewd pictures. And he sent four of them. So as per the law, he gets
55
10,
years.
55 years in jail. That's it. So he's taken to a hearing, and the prosecutor is asking for the judge to put him away for 55 years. This guy's 21. That means he'll come out when he's older than me, right? And I'm like, and his parents obviously are shocked. And he gave some bullshit story in the end saying they did honey trapped me and they did this and that. And they're all there. So somebody refers with somebody and they contact me and I say, somebody trapped him and they put him in jail. We need to help us. I said, you know what? I don't do criminal law and I'm not in Virginia. So why don't you find somebody there? I mean, that may be more useful for you. They said, no, no, we want you to help us. So I said, okay, I don't know criminal law at this point, but I'll figure it out. And I did. I went through all the code, the statute, and everything. And it was clear this guy has got himself into a hole that he cannot get out.
But why
So then I
defend him,
thought,
Venky? But why defend
huh?
him? Because he looks like a slime bag. Why defend slime bags?
Slime bag, but 65 years, 55 years is a little too much even for that. I would, if I had given him 5 years or something, I would have said, fine, pay your price and come out and then get deported to India. But 55 years, in my mind, was too much. For a 21-year-old guy, the guy is a slime bag, but not to the extent, he's not killed anybody, he's not murdered anybody, he's not raped anybody, he's not even had a relationship with anybody real. It's all with a fake cop acting as a girl, right? So, and his mother, again, the mother is one thing. The mother was crying on the phone saying, you have to do something, you have to help him. And I'm always reminded in all these cases of my own mother. How will she feel if I was in that situation? In fact, in one other case, I had to counsel the mother. Mother thought the case was going the Title IX case. She thought we were never going to win, and her health was going down the drain. One time she appeared all beautiful and pretty, and next time she looked like an old hag. So then I said, let me talk to her. Then it turned out she thought her son is finished. I told her it's not finished. The case has just started. You are finishing yourself for a useless reason.
So
But I got him out.
tell us about this criminal case in Virginia.
Yeah, there's a
So
criminal case.
yeah,
I did a search of all attorneys in Virginia who may be suitable. Eventually, I found an attorney who lives right next to that courthouse who practices in that specific court. That's very important because every court is different.
yes,
If you if a guy from Pittsburgh goes to a court in Philadelphia, he may be out of his depth.
yes.
So this guy was it's a small town in Virginia. He was work. He knew that everybody there. He knew the judges. He knew. So I found that guy. I talked to him. I was convinced he will do the job. So I engaged him, and I said, "Let tell me how we will go about doing it, and then I'll be the kind of guy who okays certain decisions or not." So he went through the statute. We went through all the evidence, recordings, and all that. Whatever the police had, he said, "You know what? This guy has now got himself in a situation where it's really hard for him to fight it. Even in an appeals court, he will lose because he showed. We went through appellate law. All the cases were lost in similar situations when they were appeals. So he said the only way to out of this is a plea bargain agreement. The plea bargain is where you go to the prosecutor and say, you know what, hey, give us a break here, guys. He's only from he's from India. I didn't know what he was doing. Sort of plead with him, and in the end, they settled for 15 years and 15 years in jail. That is serving right now. But the next step here is I figured out there's something called repatriation to India. There are treaties between India and the US and India and other countries as well, where they exchange prisoners. They take prisoners back, you take your prisoners, we give you your prisoners. So he has an opportunity which I'll be applying for next month, which I found that he had to serve at least 1 year before we can apply. Where I apply for the repatriation, if it is approved, then he will be take. It's expensive. The parents are rich, so they can afford it. It's going to cost a lot of money. They have to pay for two guards to be on the plane with them, take it to India, and then in India he'll be shifted to Indian jail. So if this works out in due course, he'll be taken out of that prison and shifted to a prison in India. And it turns out by the Indian law for a similar kind of solicitation, the jail period is only 3 years. So if he gets there, if this works out, and he ends up going to India and his parents in Jaipur, and he gets into a jail in Jaipur, I'm sure they'll have all kinds of strings there, and Plus, the law is also such that whatever POSCO or whatever they got out there, for this type of equivalent crime, the sentence is a lot lower. It's only like 3 years or something. While here it's clear cut, even if it's no real person is involved, it is a fake person soliciting. All that is in black and white. You will still get your 15 years plus 15 years plus 15 years. And so he would have been so. So the way I took the problem is we got to take it one step at a time. Get the sentence down to a reasonable number compared to the original sentence, which we did. 55 means if he comes out, he'll be 36 instead of being 66 or something, if at all he stays there. And
No,
there's also some
15. He only has a 15-year punishment. So he can come out when he is 21, 31, or 36 years.
36, and there's
Yeah.
also a few years you get for good behavior and all. So he may come out 2 years earlier. So worst case scenario, he'll come out at age 34, and then he'll be immediately shipped to India, deported to India, which may be fine with him. I think he's doing. His parents are really well off in India. But in this particular instance, if this repatriation thing works, then he'll be moved to a Indian jail. So if you go through the process, maybe within the end of the year, and then he serves a sentence there. By this time he gets there, he would have served 1.5 years out here. So maybe he'll have to serve only another 1.5 years, and then he's
Wow.
scot free.
So
So that's an unusual case that I have.
attorney Venky doesn't give up.
Yeah, I look at it
So
as that's why I'm a problem solver. I look at it as a problem. I feel that every problem can be solved one way or the other. Not exactly the way you want it, but it can be solved. And so I never look at something and say there's only one way to do this. The more individual cases, the more information you have, the more you know for sure what will work and what will not work. So I won't go to, even as a lawyer, go to someone and say this is how you need to do it, because all said and done, only all the information I know is only what the other person told me. That person may not have told me the whole thing. In fact, in your case too, the more I talk to you, the more I learn other things, other things, other things. So if I'd gone with your first conversation and given you some advice, that might have been totally off the mark, because there are other things going on that I don't even know about, which you never told me, and nobody's going to tell you 100% of everything. So I listen to whatever and I'll say this could be the solution.
so
It's up
which
to you.
career do you like more, Venky? The consulting career or the attorney career?
The attorney career, because in the consulting I thought I run my course. I done this, my so-called consulting was essentially all mainframe related work, and that was essentially becoming so going away. So I think about it, and I say if I had pressed on that career for even a little longer, at some point there might not have been work enough. I would have been forced to figure out some other way to make a living. Here I got pushed into it, but then I found I got to have the aptitude. I know I like it. I know how to do this, and it's a sort of a problem-solving mechanism, understanding how the courts work, how the individuals work, and every day I get better. I mean, every day it's like I made. I cannot even list the total number of mistakes I've made, but every mistake I've made, I've learned something. I'll never make the same mistake again, but I make another mistake, but not again the same mistake. And every time I make a mistake, I'm talking about legal issues or even other issues, decisions I make. Once realize what went wrong, I fix it. Next time I won't make it.
So, Venki, a lot of people nowadays, like Mix said when we started the show, that people have to change their careers because the economy around us changes so fast. What's your recommendation on people trying to change their career? Late 40s, late 50s?
Sure. The recommendation I would say is, unlike in your teens and 20 years old, where you just drift into some educational institution or some job. Like I went to IIT because my father was an engineer. He said, "Hey, everybody, you need to go for engineering." I didn't even know why am I doing engineering. I just went there because my dad told me to. That can't be the way you go into your second career. That has to have some meaning for you. You need to be motivated. You have a lot more distractions in your life by that time. So for me, I had motivation. I said I am going to figure this law thing out. I am going to be better than all these other lawyers, and I accomplished that. And the reason is because I was motivated. Plus, I also think that the age is not the main thing. There are some people who even do the same job again and again and again. They get into a rut and their mind sort of shuts off. They're not no longer in a
Learning mode.
capable of learning anything new. If you can't learn anything new, then you're not fit to do anything new. So if you have the mindset that I can learn it, I will learn it. It doesn't matter if I'm 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. If you say I can learn something, I want to learn it, and this is the reason I want to learn it. Not just to add to your knowledge, but I am able to do something with this knowledge, whatever that might be. It may be different for different people. For me, it was law. For other people, it may be something else. So that is bottom line. Why am I doing it? And also realizing your limitations. What are you capable of doing, and what are you not capable of doing? Not everybody can do everything. So I wouldn't tell people that, hey, if you don't things don't work out, go become a lawyer. That worked for me, uh, but may not work for someone else. But they may want to go and do a PhD or something in some other area that may improve their lives, improve their career. So I would just say have a proper motivation that doesn't fizzle out. Like after 1 year, you say, why am I doing this? It has to be
So,
last
Venky,
you
have you considered becoming a judge? Because I know that judges are elected positions in Texas, correct?
in state judges are all elected. I think
Okay.
that's true everywhere, even in California.
Oh, all state judges. No, but I know that in the court that I go to, the judge is actually appointed by the governor.
They may be appointed, but they still have to run for election. I mean, I don't know if it's any different in California. Here, every state judge has to run for election.
Okay.
In between, interimly, the judges may be appointed, but at some point, they'll have to run for election to retain the
Okay.
seat.
Okay. Okay.
So, suddenly a judge should becomes vacant because the guy quit or
Okay.
something, then the governor will appoint a judge for
Okay.
that position.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, that person has to run for election when the elections come around.
Okay.
But
So,
federal judges are all appointed. They
okay.
don't run for no.
Okay. Do you
All
have some plans for becoming a judge, Venky?
I don't think so. I mean, at this point, I don't want to run for election. That's for sure. I'm not cut out for that kind of thing. I've seen what it takes when people have run. You wouldn't believe it when you look at the judges who run for election. They act as nasty as any other candidate for office. They spew all kinds of venom on other people who are running. So you would think when you're in court, you're looking at somebody and that guy is like a god. No, not at all. That also helped me to overcome my awe of judges because I saw from behind the scenes what happens. But as an arbitrator, I'm sort of equivalent to a judge, as I said. It's a private judge. I don't have to run for office. I don't have to do anything. I just get appointed for various cases. Uh, Plus, I am at an age where I don't want to completely start one more thing again, and I don't want to go run for office and
So why
become
not
a
try to get appointed as a federal judge? Because I think an intellect like yours would be very helpful. And I personally am a big supporter of fathers who have suffered on the hands of society to be on the judgeship. Because
yeah. But those judges are all in the state courts, right?
sure.
So those are
So
all
why not?
elected
Why not?
positions.
Okay. So chalo, that reason doesn't apply. But why not go to a judge in the federal court? We would like to have an IMB alumni proudly say that he's a federal court judge in America now.
I could consider that. It won't be completely off track, especially if I get some few years into arbitration,
Yeah.
which I've just started. Then I have a track record as an arbitrator to point to, say this is a reason I would like to be a judge now in proper court.
Yeah, and with
So,
the IIT, IIM, an MBA, and then a legal education at the age of 58, that makes you very seasoned.
right.
Is there an upper age limit on that? On federal
Um,
judge?
there are some retirement ages in certain cases, but not if they have a Supreme Court. They all serve till they die.
Sure, sure.
So,
No,
so
but
they are,
usually nobody will appoint someone to Supreme Court if they are later in their careers. And
yeah,
I have
absolutely.
very high opinion of you, but Supreme Court might be difficult given your brown skin.
Even in the federal court, the same thing. I mean, you're not wrong. So they are looking for longevity in the
Yes.
position.
Yeah, because it's a
So if
political
they want
appointee,
to
so they
pick Trump
want
as a
someone who supports
40
their
years,
viewpoints. Yeah.
yeah. So if Trump appoints somebody who's 40 years old,
Yes.
that guy may be a federal judge for the next 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but if you appoint somebody who's 70 years old, that guy may
Yes.
be gone in 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that age is a factor. So you have to take into consideration those things. And plus, a lawyer, there's no retirement age. But on the other hand, a lot of lawyers burn out. At some
Yes.
point, they're not functional. I've seen a lot of lawyers who should no longer be in the court. They're still pushing along. They're half half the brain has already stopped working.
Yes. Yes.
They still stick around, and if they get clients, they're going to make a mess of things for the
Yes.
client. And so, Again, it's not necessarily age. I've seen 50-year-old lawyers act sort of they're half gone already. And it's also stressful sometimes depending on how you approach the job, because if you take a client and you lose, not you can't win every case, right? If you lose in if every case you go to court is a win or lose situation
Yeah,
mostly,
yeah.
right? It may be not sometimes it's hard to tell. You may win some part of it, you may lose part of it, but there's always this tension whether you'll win or not. Like you go to a desk job, do your job, go home. Here, you take a case, even the case of the criminal case, right? End of the day, if I succeed in repatriating him, I'm a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, something goes wrong, he's not repatriated, those people are not going to be happy with me. I'm not going to be very happy with myself, because if I take it personally,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep it at a distance. Only since I've gone through
Mm.
in my own life so much in terms of disappointments in court with my own daughters and stuff. Anybody else case, I don't get that worked up. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose.
Mm.
But I usually win. But I'm not so concerned about losing. Uh, as I was in my own case, every time I went to case thinking I'm going to win, I'm going to bring my daughters home, and I lost without lawyers. That was shocking for me. It was like I come home today, I'll be getting my daughters back. They don't get. It. I'm not getting it back. But that also steel me up, right? These things can break somebody, or it can make you stronger. In my case, I think it's made me stronger. So there are a lot of people with alienated children who completely
Gave
got
up.
depressed,
They just give up.
and not giving up may be also good enough, but they're not giving up. They're not. They don't know what to do, and they're all obsessed about their children, and their health gets ruined, and their career gets ruined. And I look at them and said, I'm never going to be like those people. I mean, I don't have my daughters with me, but I tell myself if I am in the peak of my profession and my health, and I'm still not convincing them to see there's a usefulness in having a relationship with me, if I get sick, I get, if I get, if I don't have work and stuff like that, there's even less chance they'll be have any regard for me. So I'll be loser both ways. So in my mind, that thing is there. I would like to try and solve the problem, but that is what has propelled me into my current profession. Whatever success I've had is based on the experiences I had personally. I see myself when I meet you and you tell me about your problem. I see myself in you.
Yeah,
I see, okay, I realize what he's going through.
yeah.
I've been through it myself. And I might have taken certain steps which went wrong. I have to make sure he doesn't take those steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say, hey, don't do this.
Yeah.
This will not work. Try this instead, and so on. So, so I believe there's a reason for my existence, despite all the suffering I've gone through with my personal life, is that I'm contributing back, and people who have come out ahead because they got hired me, they're all so happy. They say, "Oh, you came in till you came in. We thought we were finished. You came and solved the problem." So as long as that happens, I can tell myself I would have never been a lawyer. I would have never been an arbitrator. Never been a mediator. I would have been none of these things if life had stayed pretty average. That I'd somehow been managed with my ex-wife. A lot of unhappy marriages, right? People stick to each
Sure,
other,
sure.
continue living together, and still going through some rut work in the IT area, and that way I probably would have aged and died by now.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of the lack of motivation and so on. Now I'm fully motivated. Next week I'm attending actually an arbitration program, 2 days program in Dallas. Again, uh, all these are learnings which keep me alert, wanting to know more, wanting to learn more, and then wanting to apply the learning. I want to use
Mm-hmm.
that somewhere where I can do something which is worthwhile. So, to answer your question, if you're in a career which is going really well, I wouldn't see any reason to just jump out of it just to try something new. But if it is not, that's not the end of the world. There are other doors that will open. You just have to know where those doors are,
Mm-hmm.
look for those doors, and then go through the right door. That's what I would say is the lesson I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
because I never foresaw coming out of IIM that I'll end up becoming a patent attorney or an arbitrator or any of those things. It was never planned, and I had no idea. I all thought we'll be some VP in some company or something in due course, and I'll retire with that. And many of my colleagues have that career path.
Yeah.
They've gone ahead, done well in a single organization or two, three organizations, risen to the top, and then retired by now. In my case, it's almost as if I'm starting out.
Yeah.
At my age, I feel enthusiastic. I feel like, hey, I am a newcomer. I have to prove myself. And
Venki,
so
are you still connected to the institute in any way? Are you part of the alumni network? Do you guys have a WhatsApp group for your
we do have
batch?
WhatsApp group for the 1983 batch.
Okay.
I don't really participate in it because I find that most of my classmates are all retired
Uh,
and they have a lot of time in their hands to argue about anything and everything.
uh,
I'm like counting the way I look at my time. Even this call, I see it as I'm doing something worthwhile. I want to see that whatever time I have left, which nobody knows how long that is, I want to feel that I'm using my time in a worthwhile manner. So the WhatsApp, I have a WhatsApp group for my IIT, WhatsApp group for my IIM 83 batch, 80 batch. Anytime I go in, two guys arguing about something or the other, and once in a while I participated and regretted it, saying,
did you guys
so
have a reunion of your batch at IIM Bangalore?
no, I've not gone there at
Okay.
all. There's a now 41 years back, right?
Yeah.
So they have had periodic reunions. They got
Yeah.
invited to one last year, 40-year reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah, yours would probably have been recently in December.
Yeah, it was something in some resort.
Did
They said some resort where you come and spend 3 days near Bangalore. And my immediate picture in my mind was, what am I going to do for 3 days in a resort? It's like you don't remember everybody equally.
So let's ask you another question, Venki. Do you think your IIM education helped you?
Absolutely, I think all education helps. And I am IIT. So, for example, I got an electrical engineering degree. What am I doing with it? Pretty much nothing. In fact, I did pretty much nothing with it after 1 year of working in that field.
But can you
But
change the main electrical line in your home uh, with your electrical engineering degree?
change the electrical line. What do you mean?
Suppose the main utility connection that comes into the meter. Suppose the meter stops working. There's a panel there. Do you have the skills to change that panel?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I wouldn't even try it. I don't have the tools to do it.
Okay.
I don't have the all this you gain through experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For example, there was a garbage disposal that went out of order. I decided to do it on my own. Took me one full day to
Yeah.
because I have to take one part off, then I see I don't know how to take the other part off. I need onto the tools. I got to go back to Home Depot, get something else. Then the next time I got somebody, he did it in half an hour because that's what he does day in and day out, right? So I would like to think I know what needs to be done. So if a panel goes out, I know there's a circuit breaker. I know what could have gone wrong. So I get the guy, just like the criminal attorney I bring in there. I generally overall know the law. I know what's a crime, what it entails. But to go in there and get a plea agreement, I wouldn't do it myself. It's like I wouldn't go change the circuit breaker on my own because I'd probably kill myself. I'd get shocked out because I don't do it for a living. Similarly, I would like to think of myself as a high level guy in most areas where I can understand the problem and bring into the picture the people who can actually fix it, and I oversee the process. So that's the way I look at it. I'm not hands-on expert in pretty much anything except a few things. The rest of it
And what's
I know
your
enough.
opinion about the IIM brand in the US? Do you think the brand has helped you?
See, the IIM brand was unknown when I first came here. Nobody heard of it. But now, over a period of time, IITs have become well known. IIMs have become well known. But now, I think there are some 25 IIMs. And
Yeah.
so, every other person who's got a management degree from India says, I am from IIM. So, I think it's sort of diluted at this point.
And not only
Uh,
that, like even each IIM has a bunch of other programs which are not the main PGP program. So it's hard to
right,
know.
and they can also say they are from IIM,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so if you have so many IIMs,
Yeah.
I'm assuming people that going there are reasonably smart, but it's no longer. It's like one Harvard. If you have a Harvard, everybody's impressed you went to Harvard. But if there's a Harvard in every state and there's 50 Harvards, then
Yeah.
if you say I'm from Harvard, they'll say so what?
Yeah. So what?
So I think
I think from my understanding, Venki, I think people definitely in India know if you're from IIM, then okay, is it A, B, or
right.
C, or is it one of the next level? And a lot of it is how old they are. So the newer ones, logically, of course, they are still establishing themselves. and then there was a chunk that started in the early noughties, 2000, or maybe late 90s. So that is the next stage that was, and then the oldest ones. So there is that hierarchy, in my opinion, and people in India
Yeah,
know uh,
correct. The people in India
that
would definitely know.
you're from this IIM, and they might call it IIM, but they know, okay, this is the Harvard, and that is the XYZ.
But makes one
They
issue
know.
is that even IIM Bangalore now gives away so many executive certificates that you meet someone and he says, "Oh, I'm from IIM." He might have just gotten a.
The way I see it, and since we were talking about Harvard, this is my personal view, is let's talk about MBA. Now, IIM Bangalore, we heard recently, currently is about 600 odd people in MBA, and everything included. All other smaller programs also is another 200-300, right? Do you know how many every year, how many MBAs pass out from just Harvard?
No.
It's about 1,000.
Oh wow.
It's about a
Okay.
thousand. So if you think that isn't diluting, now that is okay. I understand there'll be some non-Americans also coming into Harvard. There's an international contingent, but it's probably 20-30%. And look at a 300 million population uh, versus versus a 1.5 billion population, and you say, okay, the premier institute there is giving 1,000 MBAs for that population, and the premier institute in India is giving less than that. So would you say that's a dilution, or do you think there could be a capacity and they're building for the future? This is now my personal view. Um, I don't think it's. I think there is scope for a lot more. We have to look at skilling of a lot of people. Now, obviously, the basic assumption is an MBA is skilling. That can be debatable in itself, and how much important. But I personally think Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, each of them they offer 1,000 MBAs. Why can't at least some of the top IIMs do? And from what I know, the newer ones, they might be new, um, less established, but they're also only doing 50, 100 type of batch sizes, because they're also just doing it one step at a time. They're not doing 600 like I am Bangalore.
No, no,
That's a
the
good
point
point.
is not that. I don't say there could be a room in India for lots of new institutes to cater to the big population. But if you take
Hmm.
that name from someone else and just plaster it on your building and say you're IIM, then that doesn't
Hmm.
automatically make your people of equal caliber. They may have, they may not be. And at some point, unless all 25 odd IIMs all produce equal caliber people, if you're saying even in India they know you're from this IIM, this high IIM, low IIM, and all that, that's because they know that certain IIM like Ahmedabad or Calcutta, Bangalore, they are much more selective in who they take, and the remaining people go to the other IIMs, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, except that the
Yes.
rest of them are sort of fooling the public who don't know that differentiation and say IIM is IIM. So everybody is from IIM. So I don't have a problem with lots of great institutes coming in. If somebody starts a amazing law management school in Texas, I don't expect them to call themselves Harvard. Call yourself something else and show the same caliber. And like we have Southern Methodist University here, we have UT Austin. They're all good schools, but nobody is just usurping a name, putting taking it on their own and then using that to say we have a quality, because at some point people will say everybody is calling themselves the same thing. So that's my problem. I'm not saying you shouldn't have more institutes, or the same institutes, if they are capable, should not take more intake of students. The reason is lower maybe because,
I mean, there are pros and cons, Venki. Definitely, there are pros and cons. One of the, from what I've heard, is by calling it, you're actually challenging these institutes, which are funded by the same. They start off with taxpayer money, definitely, and then they generate their own revenue. If the government is doing it, they'd rather leverage a brand, the same brand name, rather than create new brand names. If you were the owner of a company and you're expanding, and you know the next office, the next expanded office is not going to be as big as your headquarters, but you'll try to get your established people moving over there. Like we have, we know we've got a lot of ex professors that who taught us, who are now director or dean in the other IIMs. So that's like a corporate office. You've got some big offices, New York, Dallas, um, San Francisco, and then you've got some branch offices, if you might call them, that I don't know, name your town. And it's just brand extension. That's how I see it. It's brand extension. As an owner, I would do it. As the public, well, everyone has a right to distinguish which are the established ones and which are not.
See, I am not into the details of what each caliber of each of those IIM is. I am far away from there. Okay, so I don't even know whether they're all equally capable people in all the places or they are not. They are just put together with a name, and then only people who are going there or who are interacting with those institutes in some way will know for sure. But I feel it's sort of hard to believe that suddenly you can have a whole bunch of institutes are all the same, taking the IIM name, or all immediately producing graduates of the same caliber as the original institutes. And I'm presuming most people don't buy that idea, and that's the reason why there's a differentiation in India, that they talk about ABC and then there are the other people. And if you're going for a job interview and the guy knows the IIMs, he'll say, from IIM Ahmedabad and Bangalore, okay, you got certain stature. You're from IIM Hoshiarpur or something, then he says, okay, I'm going to treat you in a little different. You may be equally smart or the staff may be equally good, but at least at the outset, people who know the institutes may not give the same weightage to IIM as they do to the original IIMs.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, if I rewind back, 80s, when you were talking initially, IIM Bangalore was looked at very
Right,
differently, and Bangalore was the newest one at
right.
that time. So I'm just looking at it as an extension of that, and that 70s, 80s, when they extended the same name, some people might have thought, maybe Ahmedabad might have thought, कि हमारा brand dilute कर रहा है ये,
That is true.
Bangalore.
It was
There
a
are
dilution.
all some things. But then 30 years later, if you think of it, IIM Bangalore has actually reached that stage. So I mean, there is no one clear
Yeah, in
answer, but
Bangalore,
I think there are more pros that as a brand owner, if I were a brand owner or a corporate owner, that's how I would do a brand extension rather than create new
yeah,
brands
and if
of
you
my
do
mind.
that, you have to be very confident that all these satellite brands locations you've created are going to produce the people of the same caliber as the original
Yeah.
places. If you're not confident,
I think that's what they're doing. So every IAM, now I'm no expert, but these are things that I've heard over the last few years. Is firstly they're taking some professors, established professors from the existing IAMs, and then placing them. So it's like seeding with the right professors. They also, every new IAM is almost like under the umbrella of an established IAM. So if I recall right now, 20 years ago, when that second wave happened, that second wave means Kozhikode, Indore, and all that in 2000, in early noughties. So Kozhikode was under IIM Bangalore. Indore was under IIM Ahmedabad. So they took up, okay, we are going to help these institutes almost like our satellite IIM. So that's how that started. And I believe that with all these new ones, like I think the most recent one is Bodh Gaya, if I heard that right. Um, so that is also happening. And again, see, I mean, you're right that there is a possibility of brand dilution, but I suspect that mainly, yeah, people are smart enough.
I mean, there may be a lot of smart people in India who need the break opportunities, right? So when there were only two or three, you had a very small fraction of people are able to get into so-called IIM and IIT. But when you make
Yes.
a lot of them, then lots of people get it. Or I
So
couldn't get
as
the.
we bring our episode to a close, I want to show everyone Venky's legal services website. Okay, yeah. So this is Venky's legal services website. He has his biography over here. How much younger is this picture, Venky?
Take a guess.
10 years.
5 years.
Yeah, around that, 5 to 10 years. I don't remember exactly.
Five. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So legal, family mediation, business dispute, commercial consultancy, patent and trademark. So I expect over 10,000 people to watch this video in the next 12 months. And I'll tell to everyone that if you have a legal problem in the US and if you want someone to solve it for you, I can't think of a better person than Venky.
I appreciate that. And as I
Yeah.
said, I see myself as a problem solver. I don't pigeonhole myself saying I only solve these types of problems. Either I can solve it on my own if it's within my area of expertise, or I can bring into the picture whoever is required to be brought into to
Yes.
solve the problem.
So a perfect combination of an IIT, IIM, and an MBA, and then a legal education. Having had 11 judges recused from his case, won 3 appeal cases. So this guy is as seasoned as you can get. So with that thought, Venki, thank you so much for your time today, and it's so good to see you again. And thank you for the advice that you gave me personally a couple of years ago.
You're
Thank you,
welcome. And
Venky. That was very, very, very insightful for me, with very little knowledge of legal services, especially in the US.
you're welcome. And I'm happy. That's my goal, is to try and share my knowledge with as many people as I can. And hopefully it'll benefit anybody. And if they watch it and they want to ask more questions, they can reach out.
Yeah, before Venki, we log off, I want to show someone, people on the show something. So guys, hold on for 1 second. I'll have to see if I can actually pull up Venki singing. I recently found a video of Venki singing a very nice oldie song.
कोई समझा नहीं, कोई जाना नहीं, है ये कैसी डगर, चलते हैं सब मगर, कोई
So a man of many talents, Venki.
Yeah, believe it or not, I started at the age of 65. So
Okay.
I ended up doing this because somebody was conducting this near my home, and I used to only sing at home in the bathroom before. I said, let me go and see how this karaoke looks like, and then I said I'll try just one, and if it's really bad, I won't come back. And then it turned out to be decent, and then I said, you know what, I'll give as much thought to this as I do to anything else, and keep improving every time I go. And I think people seem to appreciate it.
So, Venky, is that the next thing then after legal services? Are you planning to challenge Kishore and Kumar Sanu and whoever?
Well, the way I look at it, I am at an age where, at that same age, Mohammad Rafi, Kishore Kumar, Mukesh, Manade, not Manade, but all those other guys are already died. So they all died in their 50s. So I'll say I sing better in my age than they sang at that age, because they were not even there. They didn't last too long.
Yeah. Well, then you can take inspiration from Lata Mangeshkar
Yeah.
and Asha
Right,
Bhosle.
right.
And I think Venki, I know you as someone who finds it very difficult to lose. Like I saw you how personally involved you get with each case. So maybe one of the signatures of Venki can be after he wins each case, he plays a song.
Sure.
Venki Legal and Musical Services. But thank you so much, Venki, for coming once again. I'll be in touch soon.
Sure, it was my pleasure. I really enjoyed this session. It's almost like a cathartic experience for me to tell you all about all my life.